John Knox is usually remembered as the father of Presbyterianism because it was John Knox who was the greatest and most celebrated reformer of the church in Scotland, and really was in a profound way the father of Presbyterianism in Scotland and hence Presbyterianism around the world. Knox himself was not the first preacher of the gospel of the Reformation in Scotland, but was associated with some of those very early preachers. He also was one who soon found himself exiled from Scotland because of the repressive efforts on the part of the rulers of Scotland. He fled for a time to Germany, where he served as a pastor of an exiled church, then spent some time in Geneva when Calvin was there, again as a pastor of a church of refugees, and declared that he thought the church in Geneva was the greatest, most faithful Christian church since the days of the apostles. So he was very much influenced personally and directly by Calvin, but also theologically by Calvin. In 1560, he was able to return to Scotland and saw very rapid reform of the church, very popular, widespread support to the preaching of the gospel. And so from being a refugee and an exile, often running at the risk of his own life, he returned at a time when God was so at work in Scotland that many turned to the gospel he was preaching, both leaders, nobility of various sorts, but also many common people. And so for the last about 10 years of his life, he saw a remarkable spread of the gospel, despite the fact that Mary, Queen of Scots, had returned to Scotland and, as a very devout Roman Catholic, was seeking in every way she could to oppose Knox and the spread of the Reformation in Scotland. Eventually, Mary was driven from the throne, but Knox did not believe in the last years of his life that everything was going well. He was not much of a compromiser, and some of the nobility thought that he was a little too strict, a little too demanding, and so in the later years of his life, he was a little frustrated that things were not going as well as he thought they should, as strictly as they thought he should. When he died in 1572, one of the regents in Scotland, who at times had opposed Knox's strictness, stood over the grave and said, "Here is one who neither feared nor flattered any flesh." So one of the great heritages of the church in Scotland, the Presbyterian church in Scotland, is an insistence on the freedom of the church to be itself without government restriction. And part of the whole history of the Church of Scotland has been that effort to liberate itself from constraints imposed upon it by the government. And that spirit of wanting the church to be free to follow the scriptures without governmental restriction is one of the great heritages of the Church of Scotland and of John Knox to the whole world.